Good morning, gentlemen. All right, welcome to another Bloodhound workshop. And it looks like we got a good number of people in the room. So good. Let's see, let me finish taking a look at the names. All right, well, there's one name, maybe two here that I don't quite recognize off the top of my head. So before getting started, let me ask if there's anybody new to these workshops or anybody who's fairly new to these workshops. And the question is, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right, so the workshop introduction is, I'll explain what's done in these workshops and what, more importantly, what is not done in these workshops, what we don't do in these workshops here. And then secondly, I'll explain how the recordings work. So if you ask a question, you'll know how to get a copy of that recording as quickly as possible there. And then last thing is, if you have a question about using a custom indicator with Bloodhound or Blackbeard, I'll explain what custom indicators I can install into my machine here. All right. So if anybody would like to hear those explanations, that introduction, let me know, and I'll get that done first. I'll get that out of the way first here. So while I'm kind of waiting to see if there's any response there, there are two emailed in questions for today's workshop to get today's workshop started there, and then after that, then I'll take your guys' questions in the Q&A window there, right? All right, well, it doesn't look like there's any takers on the workshop introduction. So, all right, so let's dive into our questions here. So we have another Renko kind of pullback system here. So this will be the first question today. And then possibly for the second one here. Good. Okay, it looks like Wayne is here. So Wayne, I didn't have a chance to email you back. Actually, I didn't even realize there was a question waiting for me. So I didn't get to emailing you back for some clarification here. So while I'm answering this Renko question, if you could provide me some an explanation here of, let me pull this up here. All right, so here's what's mentioned in the email here. So let's see here. So the signal is generated on the first break of the low of any bar, right, that's entered the gap zone. So, I mean, the way I see this, right, on the first break of the low of any bar. So to me, that would be either this red bar here, right? So we have the first red bar that breaks the swing low, and then the next red bar breaks the low of that bar. So is it either that bar or is it this next red bar? Because this next red bar also breaks the low, right, of the previous bar. However, you're playing the signals at the close of this green bar. This green bar definitely does not break the low of that previous bar there. So I kind of need some clarification on what exactly this means here. So the image here differs from the written explanation. Yeah, so take your time. You got plenty of time to kind of give me a good complete explanation on that while I am working on answering this Renko question there. Okay, well, all right. So let's take a look at the rules here for this question on this Renko pullback. So we have an EMA 6 and an EMA 30. So we can see the 6 there, pretty light orange, hugs price. As all fast moving averages do, they hug hug those Renko bars. So we need so again, this is for short. So we need a bar to close completely on, let's see, a complete price bar. Yeah, so the bar must close completely above the EMA 6 there, and then a signal occurs. So here we go. So a signal occurs, not there. Let's see. Hold on a moment. I think I might have a screenshot that differs from the written explanation as well. So let me go back to the email just a moment, folks. Oh, okay. No. All right. So, no, there's no contradiction in the written email there. So, all right. Yeah. So we just need a reversal bar that closes back on the opposite side of the EMA 6 there. So that looks like that one does kind of close, maybe by fractions of a tick. And that bar there definitely closed on the other side of the EMA. So, and as a trend filter there, number one, right? Yeah, here we go. We have markings number one, where, yeah, it's a little early. It probably should be one bar over, actually probably 2 bars over, where the EMA 6 is below the EMA 30 here. So it'd be the dark line. So, yeah. All right. All right. So here's my Renko bars there. And I'm pretty sure they're set up exactly like in the chart. So EMA 6, EMA 30, right? So the first thing is we're going to set up rule number one to see which side the faster moving average is on the slower moving average. Right? So let's get Bloodhound open. All right, and first thing we want to do is, since there's no file name yet, we want to go ahead and hit the save or the save as button and put in a file name for this system here. And of course, these are workshops here, so we're gonna put in the workshop date. There we go. All right, once you have a file name in place, then you can start working there, and all your work gets saved to that file automatically there. So, all right, again, rule number one is we're going to compare the faster EMA to the slower EMA. All right, which one is above, which one's below, and so that's what the comparison solver is, right? Essentially, when it comes to charting, a comparison is always going to be something above or below something else, right? That's what charting is all about. So the comparison solver, we can put in, we're going to put in the EMA 6 and compare that to the EMA 30 there. All right, so input A is almost always going to be the faster moving average. So, all right. So the first time you click the ellipses button, just give this window a little time to generate. There we go. And next, let's go find that EMA. Here we have it. All right, change the period to 6, and we're good to go. There's our EMA 6 for input A. Now our second input, that's going to be the EMA 30. All right, there's our EMA. Put in 30 for the period, and there we have it. All right, yeah, so we can see there's a couple of bars here, right, where that EMA 6, is above, and there we go, yeah. All right, so there's that trend filter. So next, we need to identify when a bar is closes above our EMA 6 here for a short. Again, remember, we're building a short signal here first. So again, we're comparing, right, bar prices to that EMA 6. So let's grab another comparison solver. So let's go with, we'll compare the open here. So I'm going to make a more liberal type of system here, and I'll explain that in a moment here. So we're going to compare the open to the EMA 6. All right, so input A is going to be the open price of the bar. So we need to change the type to prices right there. All right, so now we can see we have prices here, and we're going to switch both of these to open. There we go, and open. All right, so for a short signal, right, we're using the open price, and for a long signal, we're also going to use that open price there. Now, input B, that'll be our EMA 6. So let's just go plug that in real quick. There we go, EMA, put in a 6 period, and there we go. So, all right, so there we go, open is above. Even on this down bar, the open, right, is actually above that EMA 6. So, so if we wanted to kind of make this a little more of a complete picture, so to say, we can also use, let's see here, I could either use another comparison solver, and so we could make sure that the closing price is also above our EMA 6, right? So that way we'd be comparing the open price and the closing price, make sure that they're both above the EMA 6, or that they're both below that EMA 6. Or I could use a bar direction. I could, grab a bar direction as well, right? Because we know that we, rule number 2 is, we want the entire, it's going to be an up bar. We're looking for an up bar to be above that faster moving average. So I could use a bar direction there and do that, but I think it's probably easier to think in terms of looking at the open price and the closing price. So what I'll do there is I'll make a copy of this solver that I just made there, and I'll take this one here, and we'll just modify it there so it's looking at the closing price. All right, so I'll just go and switch this back to the closing price there. All right, so now if I grab an AND node, now this looks more like a more understandable visual here. right? So there we go. So there's an entire bar above the EMA6. And of course, we have a bunch of down bars here below that EMA6, right? There's a couple there, right? And we can see that, right, these other two bars here are touching the EMA6 there. So, yeah. All right. Now, the next part here is, right, the signal is actually on the reversal bar. So let's go mark that. There. Stretch that out a little bit. Right. And no, that quite that the Renko bars didn't quite get high enough to go above that faster moving average. So that one doesn't qualify, but there we go. We got that one there. So, right, so we've identified the bars, right, closed above the EMA6, but, right, and our output ends right here. It ends right there. But the signal's here. So we need to take this output here, right, this rule, and shift it forward onto the signal bar there. Right? But also we're expecting a short. So we can't have this long output will not generate a short signal, right? This long output would actually prevent a short signal. So this long output needs to be reversed to a short. Right? So the easiest way to reverse this, we could go into each of these solvers, right? So we could actually go into the comparison rules here and reverse these, right? Yeah, so we could reverse the conditions. We could make this, less than and make this greater than. And we'd have to do the same thing for this other comparison solver, right? That's comparing the open price, go into the rules window and also reverse those conditions, right? That would do it. Or I could take this AND node there and I can swap it. And there we go. So now this is a short, all right, in preparation for the potential short signal that might follow afterwards. Yeah. All right. So we have our pullback bar, right, giving us a short signal, but now we still need to shift it forward one bar onto that potential reversal bar. So to do that, let's grab a function node, and we're going to use the lookback node. There. And the lookback node, it has the displacement turned on and set to 1 bar by default. So this default setting is what shifted everything forward. So it's the displacement. We took that short signal here, right, of our Renko bar, being above the EMA6, and we shifted that forward. So I'm going to rename this here so I know what it's doing. So this is doing a displacement of 1 bar, like so. There. All right. Let's kind of zoom out here just a little bit. Push everything back. And let's add another AND node. Now it looks like we're done. However, let's see here. Yeah, I think we had a disqualification here. So let's take a look at that. Yeah, right. So we see that the faster EMA did slip above the slower EMA. So we're going to have to come back and address this here. But let's take a look at what we have now. Right. So it kind of looks like we have a complete picture, but here we go. Here's a good example. So this shows that things aren't quite done yet, because these are not reversal bars, right? So this needs to be a reversal bar here. And so for Rankos, well, actually this works for any bar type. If you want to find, or if you want to identify the reversal bar, the inflection solver can do that. So essentially, when it comes to charting, an inflection is a reversal when it comes to charting. So yeah. So what we're going to do here is we're going to check the closing price of the bar to see if it inflects or reverses. All right. So for the input, we need to change the type to price again. And now we have, right, the bar price is available and the close is the default. So we're good to go. And if we look at this, there we go. All of the reversal bars are now marked on the chart here. All right. So let's take a look at that. And let's go back here. There. All right, so here's our problem area. So if we connect this in, there we go. Now all we're left with are the reversal bars there. All right. So let's take a look. Let me pull up that screenshot here. All right, so rule number one here for this system, right? Comparing the faster moving average to the slower one. So that is this solver up here, right? We're comparing the EMA 6 to the EMA 30. And then rule number two, we need to have a whole price bar must retrace fully, right, above, right, that faster EMA 6. And so that's what we have in the middle here, right? That's what this is doing. So this is what's identifying that the entire bar is above the EMA 6. And this AND node, remember this AND node is swapped here. So remember, you can identify that because of the icon here, right? This little not recycling icon, but reversing icon there. There tells us, right, that this AND node is swapped. So normally, I think in other videos up on YouTube on systems similar to this, again, I'll just remind everybody that typically what I would have done is I would have gone into the rules window and just reversed these conditions here, reverse them. So that way each comparison solver is doing the reversing here. But I did it this way just to kind of illustrate that there's quite often two or more ways to create, some of these kind of conditions like this. So there's no right way, there's no wrong way. Well, it's wrong if you don't get the results that you want. So for example, if I connect this up and, if I connect that up and we don't see a short output, then we know, it was done the wrong way. So pretty visually obvious to you. All right, now last thing, number 3 here is we're looking for a reversal bar, right? So as mentioned before, the inflection solver here, and remember, if you're not sure what node this is, it tells you right here at the very top. It says inflection, right? If I click on this node, if I look up on top, it tells me it's a comparison node. So, but anyways, yeah. So these inflection nodes here, right, mark every single reversal bar. right? All of these reversal bars. Okay, so now let's revisit this situation over here. There. All right. So our EMA 6 did pop above, right, the EMA 30 for 1 bar here. And so most likely that disqualifies this entry. If it doesn't, then of course we can just, leave it like it is. All right. Sorry about that. Voice is drying out already with these cold days we're getting here. So yeah, so we can leave it like it is if this is okay. But if the faster moving average needs to stay below the slower one, the entire setup, then let's see here. I think this should be fairly simple. Actually, I don't think it's gonna work here. That did work. Oh, okay. So here's another solution. Let's disconnect that. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna look back a couple of bars here. So there, take a look at that. Now we can use a look back node again, like so. And with this look back node, we're going to turn the displacement off and actually use the look back function here. So let's just set that to 2. Probably 2 is enough. And we're going to set this to minimum. So we need a minimum of 2 bars. There. So something like that. And so we can see what happens is now, right, our trend filter here, comparing the faster moving average to the slower one, we actually have no output on that reversal bar there for that one. And let's go forward here, right? And we do have an output on these right, on these reversal bars here. Yeah, obviously that definitely was disqualified there. So, yeah. All right. So, yeah, to kind of say this in a different way, this look back node here, it's making sure that we have a minimum of 2 bars where the faster moving average is below the slower one. And so as soon as we get, right, this 1 bar there, that doesn't happen. So, and so on this bar, right, we can see the EMA 6 is now below the EMA 30. So that's the first bar, and once we get to the second bar, now we have a short output here on that second bar of the EMA 6 below the EMA 30 there. So now if we connect this in like so, now that signal is gone. There, and let's take a look at this. Well, yeah, actually both of those qualified. Yep. So, yeah, actually, let's take a look at the screenshot here just in case. Um, okay, yeah, I don't see any mention of the reversal bar needing to be below the EMA 30 there. All right, so we'll just kind of leave it at that. Um, um, uh, yeah, all right, so let me look back here and check some of these others. So, all right, yep, so we have at least one bar that is completely below the faster moving average, and then we have a reversal up. There we go. Yep, same again. Reversal up. Yeah, there we go. All right, so here's the other thing that's in question, which let's see if I can see if one of these. Yeah, here we go. I think this. Yeah, here we go. This is a good example. So it says the entire bar, not the body, but the bar. Let's see. Yeah, so it says a complete price bar, not the body, but the price bar. Right. So to me, that means the bar, not the body. So yeah, so that would mean that this bar here would um, doesn't qualify because the wick, right, is below the EMA 6, the low price there, right? The wick is touching. So if we wanted to include the wicks here, then we need to adjust this part of the system here. Right? So, mm, all right. So what we're gonna, so so the closing price is still going to be above, right? Even if it's a long signal. Let's go back here, right? So if it's a long signal, right, the closing price is below. So what's in question is if it's a long signal, it would be the high price. And so in this case, so for a long signal, it'd be the high price. For a short signal, it'd be the low price. But the closing price still needs to be above or below that EMA 6 there. So this is the solver that would need to be modified. So instead of using the open price, right, we'd use the high and the low price. So let's make a copy of this. And we'll paste it down here. And so if it's a long signal, we'd be looking at the high price. If it's a short signal, we'd be looking at the low price. There. All right. So for a long, we're going to change the open to the high price and change the short to the low price. And let's go back here. All right, so this is the signal we're looking at. So if I connect that in, and let's see, that did not, disqualify it. All right, let's see what we have here. Oh, right. Yeah, so because because this AND node is swapping things here, it but it's not just the AND node, but actually this comparison solver. It's giving us a long and a short when a bar is touching there, straddling. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, so what we need to do is we need to get rid of all the bars, or get rid of the output that has a long and a short together. All right. So yeah, here we go. Here's a good example. So we can see this bar, it has no wick. So the low price is above the EMA 6. All right, and it has a long only output. Right, a long only output here. And for these down bars, you know, let's go back. Let's go back to our long signal setup here. Here we go. So these bars here, moving down, right, there is no wick. So the entire bar is below the EMA 6. And there's a short only, right? There's no long output. Right? So it's only when the bar is touching the EMA 6 you get a long and a short. So what we want to do, let's go back here, is we want to strip out or remove all the bars that have a long and a short together. And let's see here. Yeah, so my instincts are telling me to go with a long short modifier. But the long short modifier, what it can do, it actually does, it only does the opposite of what I want here. So if I set it to minimum, right, we're left with the long and shorts, but we want the opposite of that. Well, yeah, all right. The difference technically works. It's a little confusing, but as we can see, this bar here, right, there is no wick, so it is above the faster moving average. Over here, right, these bars that do have a wick that are touching the EMA 6, right, there is no output. So that actually will work if I just connect that in. Bingo, that signal is gone. But of course, this is kind of confusing to understand. Yeah, so let me see if we can build this a slightly different way here. And what, again, I just want to, clarify, what's adding a little confusion is because this AND node, remember, we swapped it, so it's reversing the outputs here of these two guys, which normally I don't do. All right, so if I turn the swap off, so this is just a normal AND node, right? If I turn it off, right, we get a long output here when the body is above or the body is below, right? But again, remember, this is the long when we're expecting a short signal. Yeah, and so instead of reversing the output on our comparison solvers, I took a little shortcut and reversed it on the AND node. And so that's adding a little difficulty here when trying to add another node here for filtering out any bars that have that wick there. Let's see here, but I think if I go into the rules window here, and let's see what happens if we reverse these. And there we go, perfect. All right, so let's just do that. All right, so there you go. There, well, actually that doesn't work either because this is a short output here. So watch. If I connect this in, I get nothing now, right? Because remember, the first two here, they are producing a long output here, whereas this node, it's producing a short output there. So I need to do that and then swap it. So yeah, well, yeah, so both ways are getting a little confusing, but it does function. And if, there we go. So ultimately, just always look at, right, the last AND node here and look at the ultimate results. And there we go. So there is the one signal we're left with. All right, so adding this extra node here, actually, if a wick does disqualify, right, a setup, this node here, you're looking at the open price, that's not even needed, right? That we could just completely disconnect that. That's not needed. And we can just leave it like that. Right, so there we go. Let's take a look going forward. There. Let's see. Yep, there's our bar below the fast moving average, and there's our reversal signal. Right, there we go again. Yep. There. All right. So with that, I'm gonna leave it there. I guess, yeah, I'll just mention as well that here we go. This is probably a good example, but if for some reason, if the bars needed to stay completely below the slower moving average, right? So in other words, you know, disqualify this setup because, right, we got 1, 2, 3 bars that broke above the slower moving average. So if that is a disqualification there, then what you would need, essentially what you would need is a comparison solver there, right? So just like how we have these comparison solvers identifying when a bar is above or below the EMA 6, then you need to do the same thing here. Essentially, you could copy these comparison solvers and change the EMA 6 to the EMA 30, or whatever your slower moving average is, right? And you can make sure that none of these bars cross above. But remember, we might get some bars that cross above early, right, before the reversal bar. So you would also need this look back node here as well. So remember, this look back node is right. It's making sure that there's at least 2 bars where the faster EMA is above or below the slower EMA. So we have 2 bars. So you want to make sure that you have at least 2 bars, if not 3 bars, where the closing price, or you could even look at the high and the low price. Make sure that either the closing price or the high and low price is above or below the EMA 30, right? Yeah. Yeah, so you could add that 4th condition and then tie it into this AND node here. Yeah. All right, let me give this a name here. There. All right, I think that's a good enough name for that. There. So let me see if there's any follow-up questions on this, and take a little drink so I can clear my throat. I don't see any questions on this or any follow-ups, so I think we're done here. All right, so let me add a new logic template there, and we'll get set up for Wayne's question. All right, yeah, because it looked like Wayne has kind of explained the discrepancies here. So, all right, yeah. So give me a moment to kind of read through that and get my chart set up. All right, Wayne. Thanks for that explanation here. So, um, for further, yeah, to help me understand this further here, you let's see here. There's a key word in your explanation. Um, yeah, you say the entry would trail. Okay. Um, so again, guys, this is kind of a good example of why details matter, and providing details that you may think don't matter actually do matter for somebody else to kind of comprehend the the full system here. So it sounds like, Wayne, when you get these, I guess we'll call them pullback bars back to the swing low, that you're going to place a stop entry. So yeah, because the only way you could trail an entry is, at least the way I understand it, is with a stop entry. So it sounds like on this first green bar, this is your first pullback bar. That is the setup there. And so it sounds like, I think what you're wanting to do is place a stop entry at the low of the first green bar, right? For a short setup, obviously. Then if you get a second green bar, then yeah, trail that stop entry up even higher there. Yeah. So does that sound correct there, that you actually want entry signals on the first green bar so that a stop entry, and yes, okay, gotcha. All right, all right. And then also what's wanted as well as a bonus, and I think um, let's see, no, let me copy that. And oh, there, got to pull up the correct email here. Well, yeah, I guess the email doesn't quite put it as elegantly as your explanation here. So let's see. Oh, good. I think I can copy stuff out of Zoom now. Okay, there we go. Let's see if this copy actually works. And it did. Okay, great. All right. Yeah, so as a secondary kind of requirement here, Wayne would like to be able to set a maximum distance of these, quote, pullback bars. Yeah, because yeah, the further away price gets before it makes a pullback, then obviously anybody's looked at the markets, right? Basically, the market has made its run already, so you're really hoping for these pullbacks to be closer to the swing low or the swing high before the market does make its ultimate run, however far it's going to go. Yeah, so let's see if we can set up a solver that can say, hey, the distance between the high of that pullback bar to the swing low, that distance needs to be a maximum separation, right? A maximum gap distance there. Yeah, so we'll add that in as well. So, all right, so let's take a little break here while I get my chart set up. Okay, I think I have everything squared away in my head, and I think I have found a couple of places on the chart as well, so we can work with. All right, so let's kind of go through a little summary here of the question. So we're looking for an ABC pattern, right? So your first. So for a short setup here, A is the first swing high, and then of course you're going to have B, which will be the next swing low, and then C, right, which is the next swing high, but that swing high has to be lower than the previous swing high, right? So that's going to be the first thing we look for, is we're going to check these swing highs and make sure they're stepping down, right? So the way that you identify point C is you look to see when a swing high steps down. And so when that happens, that is A, B, and C all confirmed, right? So that's what we'll look for first. So, so once point C is identified, then the next condition is we look for price to cross below the swing low here, or cross below point B, right? Cross below. And then we look for a reversal up bar, right? We look for price to reverse back up. And that is basically when we start generating an entry setup, because again, remember, this is going to place a stop entry. So it's a entry signal to place a stop entry, but it's not the actual entry point per se. So all right, so going back to, let's minimize this here. So I'm probably going to stay focused on this. This is nice and easy to look at here. So here we go, right? Here's point A, right? Then we have a step down, and of course there has to be a point B in between there. Oh, actually, so actually we had an exact double top. Actually, no, not quite. Yeah, we can barely see. The swing highs did actually step up a little bit there. Yeah. So, so that's A. This is B. And then that is C there. And just double check here. Yes, swing strength of 7. All right. Things are taking a while because look at that, price just kind of consolidated. So if we wanted to, maybe I'll knock this down to 5. There. Well, that kind of messes up my setup there. So shoot. Let me take another look through here. And if I use 5, at least we do have a signal bar here, right there. So here's A, B, C. All right, I guess that'll work. So all right, so point A, point B, point C. All right, let's get Bloodhound open. So again, to repeat myself here, when we identify point C, which is our swing highs stepping down, right, for a short signal, or the opposite would be, right, the swing lows stepping up for a long setup. When we identify point C, there's automatically going to be a point B and a point A, right? You can't get a point C without A and B occurring first, just because of the technical nature of how swing highs and swing lows and swing indicators operate. So, yeah. So how do we identify, when the swing high steps down or the swing low steps up for a long signal? That is the comparison solver once again, right? So we're comparing, right, what we're looking at is we're looking at the previous bar and comparing it to the current bar. So let's imagine we're right here, right? This just printed. So yeah, we look at the current swing high and compare it to the one bar back, the swing high one bar back. Or in this case, same thing, right? If this just printed, then we're looking at the current swing low, comparing it to one bar back. Did the swing lows move higher? There. All right, so let's give this a name here. So swing lows are what's used to generate a long entry, and then swing highs are used to generate a short entry. And I'm going to use a programming term here. So 0 denotes, right, the current bar, and then we're going to compare that to one bar back, like so. Okay, so input A and input B is going to be our swing indicator there, right? Now, I should probably pause here and note that the reason why Bloodhound comes free with the swing high and low indicator, right? So this swing highs and lows and the swing trend indicator, the reason why they're included for free is because it's mandatory when you're building a system. The swing highs and lows, you can see the high points extend indefinitely until the next high point shows up. Same with the swing lows. The swing lows extend forward in time indefinitely until a new swing low occurs. Whereas, in comparison, the swing indicator that comes with NinjaTrader, that swing low comes to an abrupt end when it gets broken. So you can see in this screenshot, you actually had to draw a line to illustrate, that this swing low is needed further in time. And so if you don't have a swing low plot to use anymore, then you can't build a system, right? So so because of this issue with the NinjaTrader swing indicator, that's why we include the swing highs and lows for free with Bloodhound there. So there you go. So this indicator overcomes the issues with NinjaTrader's swing indicator. All right. So let's see here. Let's get back to building. All right. So input A, that's going to be our swing indicator here. So let's go and plug that in. There you go. Swing highs and lows. And again, remember, if you're adjusting the strength to make those setting changes in Bloodhound there, and also the number of swings is knocked down to 2 there. And so in this situation, we're using the swing highs to identify a short entry. So for a short, we're using the whitest tops, right? So the plots that you see on my chart is the green is the whitest tops, the red is the whitest bottoms, and I actually have the tightest plots. I have those turned off. Those are set to transparent. So, all right. And again, we're using, right, the swing lows or the whitest bottoms to identify a potential long setup there. All right, so there we go. So, all right, so input B is going to be the same thing. Open this up. Select our swing highs and lows. Go in and adjust the settings there. And again, select the correct plots, like so. But this time, input B, right? Remember, we're going to say input B, we want that to be 1 bar back. So we're going to use the displacement, set that to 0. And there we go. Swing high steps down, and it generates a short output. The swing low steps up. There you go, generates a long output. So, right, swing high steps down, short. Swing low steps up, there you go. So, all right. So now what we can do is put that into a toggle node. I gotta say, we haven't used the toggle node in quite a while in these workshops. But this is a perfect situation here for the toggle node. Right? So now we can see, are the swing highs stepping down or are the swing lows stepping up there? Oh. And let's see. Yeah, okay, yeah, we still have a valid setup here. Great. So, all right, let's get rid of that, get rid of that. All right, yeah, so kind of stepping back what we just built with the toggle node, right? So the swing high steps down, and so this is our kind of our directional filter here telling us, hey, there could be a short setup occurring here, right? So we're valid for a short setup. So as long as this toggle node, right, is giving us a short output, only short signals can occur. And then when the swing low steps up, right, our toggle node is giving us a long output. So that means only a long signal can set up there. Right. So, okay, so let's see here. Next requirement is we need price to break that swing low. So yeah, and so like over here, let's get an arrow. So here we're in a long a long setup here, and so price did actually cross the swing high. Yeah, so let's see, so there should be, yeah, right there. So that would be our bar. Let's move that a little higher there. That would be our bar, right, that generates the long setup there. And let's see, did we mark the bar here? I thought I marked that. There we go. Here, expand that out a little bit. There we go. All right. So, yeah. And I guess just for good measure, there, I'll put a down arrow. There we go. All right, yeah. So next thing is let's look for these crossovers here for price to cross that swing high for a long or cross that swing low for a short. All right, so that is just going to be a simple crossover solver there. And I guess, you know, the question is, you know, are we looking for the low prices to cross, you know, which means that the entire bar cross below our swing low, right? Or yeah, that the low prices cross below, even for a long setup, that the low prices cross above, right? Little detailed questions you can be asking yourself there when you're kind of generating these signals here. So that's not mentioned, so I'm just going to use the closing price there. But if you want to make sure that the entire bar has crossed below, then sorry, for a short it'd be the high price. If the high price crosses below, then you know you have an entire bar below. If the short price crosses above the swing high, then you know the entire bar has crossed above there. And actually, yeah, you know what? We're going to switch this out here because look, we do have well, actually, no, this would be a good example. Yeah, I am going to use the closing price. So that way, this bar here, because that using the closing price, as I'm building it, we can ensure that this up bar doesn't generate a short signal, right? Because obviously this up bar here, you know, is above our swing low point here. Yeah. So let's go with, yeah, we'll go with the closing price for now. All right. So we're identifying if the closing price crosses the swing high, if it's a long signal or a long setup, or if it's crossing the swing low, like in here, that would be a short setup. So that, let's see, input A needs to be the closing price. So input A, we're going to change the input type to price. There we go. The closing price is the default. Next, input B needs to be the swing high, swing low. So let's go open up the indicator window and go and select our swing high, swing low. And again, adjust the inputs like so. And so this case, this crossing the swing highs or the waist tops is for a long setup, and the swing lows for a short. And there we go. All right. So there we have it. Yeah, there's our crossover point here, right before we get that pullback bar, or yeah, reversal bar. So same thing here. And so now we can add an AND node and begin to see a little bit here. Yeah. So essentially what we're seeing are price crossing the swing highs and lows when ABC has been identified and the direction of ABC has been identified. Yeah. But our signals are still in the future, right? So we get our first short, you know, cross down, but our signal is still a few bars into the future, right? Even here, right? This long, our signal bar is actually in the future there. So let's see here. What can we do? So I could either, I think what I'm going to do, I think what's going to be easier is I'm going to take this crossover and extend it into the future. So I could just use the look back here and just say, okay, let's put in 10. There we go. So we took, right, when price crossed the swing high or swing low, we just extended that crossover signal by 10 bars, right? Which gets us to the point where we might eventually get that pullback there. Although, when you use the look back, you can't actually turn that off. So when you get your pullback bar, right, because there's still an output, right, we can still see an output, but there's this output here, you could end up getting multiple signals. Which usually that's undesirable. So when you have a prerequisite and so let's set that back to none, right? So when price crosses the swing high and the swing low, that's a prerequisite, right, prior to getting to the actual signal bar. Usually you don't want to extend those prerequisites unconditionally. So what I mean by that is I'm going to use a function node. I'm going to use the signal extender. And we'll extend this by, probably my guess is 8 bars is enough, but I'll just go 10 bars just in case. And the benefit of using the signal extender is, remember, it has this reset connector. So we can actually turn the signal extender off. We can turn the signal extender off when we get to that signal bar. When we get to the signal bar, right? So this output here can then be turned off, right? So on these bars, come on, there. So so on these bars, we can actually turn the output off, right? We can turn our signal extender, turn that output off, so we don't get these, continuous outputs here. So, this will become a little more visually understandable once we get further down the road. There. All right. Connect that into that. Connect that up. Here we go. So now the next step is identifying that reversal bar or pullback bar. And that is simply a inflection solver. And we're going to change the input type to price. Yeah, we want to know when the closing price reverses direction. So, and let's also give this a name. Yeah. All right, so let's kind of zoom in here. So what we're interested in is this pullback bar, right? But remember, this is a, shoot, wish it wouldn't move quite so quick. There we go. But remember, this is a short setup, but on the signal bar here, right? We have a long output, but we need a short output. So let's actually swap that. There, now we have a short on this pullback bar. So let's connect that in. Bingo. Yeah. So, yeah, this kind of illustrates here. Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, yeah, this illustrates, this kind of issue of looking at the closing price, crossing the swing low or the swing high. So, let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna take care of that right now. There. Let's see here. All right. So let's go ahead and modify our crossover solver here to use the low and the high prices instead. So let's see. So for a short, we want to make sure that the high price had crossed below when we're in a short kind of setup situation. And so for a long setup, it's going to be the opposite, the high price there. And oh, sorry, I got those backwards. There we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. There. So now we're getting a short output when the entire bar has crossed below. And same thing over here. There, the entire bar finally crosses above the swing high. Now we have an output. So because of that, I'm sure it's not going to take 10 bars. So let's I'll knock it down to 6 bars. Yeah, we'll see how that fares. It is a good idea, just generally speaking, to keep your signal extensions to a minimum as possible. I guess 10 probably wouldn't be bad, but I'm just going to knock it down to 6 for now. And we'll kind of scan through the chart. And if we need to knock it back up to 8 or 10, we'll do that. So, but for now, I'm thinking 6 bars, without a pullback is probably very, very unlikely. So I'll just go with 6 bars for now. And let's take a look at our results right now. So there we go. There's a signal on this pullback bar and a signal on that pullback bar. So far, so good. So now let's get rid of these other extra signals here, right? And so that's what I was talking about, that if you don't turn your signal extending off, right? Let's take a look at that signal extender, right? We can see it turns on, and then we had another crossover, right? So it turned back on. Up here, right, the signal extender is still on for a while. So we want to turn this off, and we can use that because remember this, when we get our price reversal bar or our pullback bar, right, that's when we can turn the signal extender off. So to do that, we're going to grab a look back node. We're going to connect this into the look back node. Connect that up. And the reason why we need a look back node is we need this displacement function, right? And so again, if we zoom in here, right, this is the signal bar, but look, the short output has been shifted forward 1 bar. So this short output is what will turn off the signal extender, right? We want to turn that signal extender off after the signal bar, not on the signal bar. So let's connect that up, and then we'll connect this in, and there we go, right? So there's the signal extender going all the way out to 6 bars. And then if we connect this into the reset, there we go. It turns off on the signal bar. And let's go back here. There we go. Right, so remember, we're looking at the signal extender here. So there we go. The signal extender turns on once the entire bar, right, crosses above the swing high, and then our signal extender stays on until we get that pullback bar, and then it gets turned off afterwards, right? So here, right, so that's the long output that's turning off the signal extender, right? It's turning it off on this bar here. So let's look at the signal extender again. There we go. There. All right, we're very close. So let's just kind of scan through here. Here. Well, yeah, all right. So look, we had another swing high. We have another A, B, C pattern. Yeah, and there's our pullback bar. Let's see. All right, so we have a problem here. So our swing lows actually stepped down. So somehow we managed to get a short signal here. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so this swing, oh yeah, sorry, the swing low stepped down. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so our swing lows did step up and then it stepped down. Okay, so if a swing low steps down, I'm assuming that disqualifies the setup, but maybe not. Because yeah, well, we definitely don't have an ABC pattern anymore. So yeah, all right. So we need to take care of this. All right. Our swing lows step up, and so we're now looking for up, right? We're now in a long kind of setup situation, right? A long trend situation. And it stays on. even though the swing lows step down. So we need to turn our toggle node off if the swing lows step down. So we need to use the reset for the toggle node there. So let's do this. We're going to make a copy of this solver and paste it down there. And let's see here. I think we can just reverse the conditions to get what's needed. Although we do need to connect this up. There, let's connect that up. Okay. Yeah, so I just simply reverse the conditions here. So if a swing low steps down, we get a long output. The direction of the output when the swing low steps down, that direction actually doesn't really matter. Yeah, so you know what, that's probably kind of confusing to think of it that way. So let's put this back here. There, hit apply. Yeah, so if I hit apply, I need to now, so when this swing low steps down, right, I don't get anything. Yeah, so there's no output here. And I need some output. I need either a long output or a short output. Doesn't really matter, because on the toggle node, for the resets here, I can use anything. I can use a signal or an opposite signal. So it doesn't matter the signal direction here when it steps down. So, but I'm going to build this just so it looks a little more comprehensible. So let's go into input A, and what I need to do is just reverse the plots there. Go into input B and reverse these plots as well. And bingo, the swing low steps down and generates a short, right? That seems a little more logical, right? Just like when the swing highs step up, it generates a long signal, right? That seems more intuitive there, right? So how did I get, you know, a short output when the swing lows step down? Well, let's look at the plots. So for a short output, I'm now looking at the bottoms, right? The swing lows, whitest bottoms, are now being used to generate a short output. Whereas before, the swing lows were being used to generate a long output, right? So just reversing that. Reversing the plot selections. Remember, I reversed the plot selections for input A and input B. Okay, so we have a short coming down. So let's connect that into the reset there. And so on the reset connection, right, we have the reset connection's turned off. It's set to no action. So right now, right, our toggle node has a long output. But when the swing low steps down, it gives us a short, right? It's giving us a short signal right there. So that short is opposite of what the toggle node has, right? The toggle node has a long output. So that means I'm using an opposite signal to reset the toggle node. So boom, we're going to force that off. There we go. All right. Yeah, so there you go. Our swing lows stepped up, right? So that's the first step for looking for a long setup. And then the swing lows stepped down, so that nullified that long setup. But then our swing lows step up again. So there you go. We're in preparation for that. Let's see here. But also, we have some other disqualifiers. So if price, crosses below the swing low, that also kills it. Let's see here. Yeah, it doesn't mention it in the screenshot, but it does mention it in the email that if, obviously if price crosses above, right, point B, then obviously that nullifies it. We're looking for a pullback almost to point B, but not crossing over point B. Yeah, so we could use this right here to nullify that to turn off our toggle node, so that there's no possibility of a signal being generated. Yeah, so let's go and do that. Yeah, this crossover is not quite what we want. So let's add another crossover solver. There. All right, so if the low price crosses over the swing low, like right here, so if the wick of that bar crosses our swing low, then that nullifies a long setup, right? That's going to nullify this long setup here, right? So we have A, B, C. So we have A, B, C, but then if price, even if the wick, all right, I'm going to assume that even if the wick crosses point C, right, that swing low, then that nullifies the setup. So so in my naming here, I'm checking if the low price crosses the swing low, then we're going to use that output to turn off the toggle node, right, to kill the toggle node there. So let's see, actually, what do I have here? I'm using opposite signal. Okay, so actually, I need to generate a short. Yeah, a short will be generated when that low crosses down. So, okay, that'll work. All right, so input A is going to be our low and high prices. So let's set the input type to price. And for a short, we're looking at the low of the bar. For a long kind of reset signal, we're using the high of the bar. And then input B, that's going to be the swing highs and lows indicator. So let's go pull this up. And again, always remember to adjust any settings. So we're looking for a short if the swing low is crossed, right? There you go. Wise Bob's is crossed. And if the swing highs is crossed, we want a long output like so. Yeah, there we go. Right there is that low price crosses the swing low. So this is going to be our reset signal here. So we have two nodes going into one reset. So we can't do that. So what we need is push this back a little bit. So we need a OR node. So let's look at this OR node. There. So, yeah, so remember this swing low, right? When it steps down, we generate a short to turn off the toggle node. And then also if price now crosses the swing low, we also have a short output that will also turn off the toggle node. Let's take a look at the toggle node. Oh, and let's connect that in. Actually, you know what? There, let's take a look at it like this. Crunch that up. There. Have a good view of that. And now let's connect in the OR node. And there we have it. So, yeah, actually, yeah, here's something that wasn't noticed is the swing lows step up. So we have A, B, C, but then price crosses below. So that nullified that long setup. You know, yeah, price crossed below even before the swing low step down. So yeah, you know, actually kind of coming back around full circle, we probably don't even need to identify if the swing low steps lower, because obviously price has to break the prior swing low before another swing low can even generate, right? So we don't even actually need that guy right there. Yeah, let's just simplify this, right? Like so, there. All right. There. There. And let's see, all right, so this is where we were working. So let's see what else we have. We have, let's see, yeah, so we have, oh, there we go. So we have A, B, C, and right, so we have a potential short setup, but price never gets below B. And interesting. So as price crossed point C, we also had the swing lows stepping up. Yeah. All right. And that never happened. Price didn't get high enough. And boom, as soon as a wick crossed point B, there we go. That setup is now nullified. There. All right. A, B, C, but then price pulls back to C, nullifies it. There. All right. So I think we're in good shape here. so far. Right, let's kind of scan through here. Let me save this work here. So if you remember, guys, when you close Bloodhound, it saves all your work back to the file. So, all right, so good. We're still left with these signals here that we know are correct. And yep, even that one. Boy, something happened, didn't it? Market got excited somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, swing lows stepped higher. So A, B, C. There's our pullback. All right. Yep. Let's see. We have A, B, C. All right, yeah, we definitely have a problem here because the signal bar has crossed, was it point B? Yeah, cross point B. So let's fix this. All right, so let's see what's going on here. So let's take a look at the toggle node. All right, swing high, step down. All right, so yeah, so we finally get a bunch of consolidation chopping around. Then we finally get a bar, right, that closes below point B, and well, actually, technically, this is point B. Yeah, that's point B. And then our swing lows, yeah, step down. So what happens there? Those kind of things aren't, kind of spelled out here. But let's at least correct for what's an obvious technical issue here, which is, boom, price broke above this, the swing low there, and so that definitely disqualifies that as a pullback now. So we need to, turn off our signal extender if that happens. Yeah. Well, I was kind of hoping maybe one of these crossover solvers might do it for me. No, doesn't look like it. All right. So again, what we're doing here is, right, when price, so for this short setup, right, once we get a bar that's completely below our swing low, right, we need to turn off the signal extender if a bar breaks that swing low, right? So if the high price breaks that swing low, then obviously that disqualifies. And to disqualify it, we turn off the signal extender, right? Remember, this is what we're looking at right now, is the signal extender. So if we turn it off on that bar, then we won't see, let's see, yeah. So on this pullback bar, we won't see a signal there. There. All right. So let's see here. We're gonna need another OR node here. Let's put an OR node in place. Connect that in. That goes in there, and it is. Yeah. So we need a short signal. So we need a short signal when price crosses above that swing low. Yeah. So, and the way we know that, so I was looking at this look back node here, and oh yeah, there we go. So it is this short signal that turns off the signal extender, right? So the signal extender, right? The signal extender is on for these two bars here. Here we go. There. And right, so if we look at what's going into the reset connection, all right, if we look at this OR node, it is this short output that is turning off the signal extender. So that means when price or the high price crosses above the swing low, we need a short output, right? Normally when something crosses above, you get a long output, right? Crossing above is usually a long kind of condition. So we're gonna have to reverse that with our crossover solver here. So there we go, build that crossover. So there. All right, so input A is going to be the high and low price. And so let's see here. Let's put the high price in the long output and the low price in the short output. And then input B is going to be our swing highs and lows indicator. So let's go set this up. All right, adjust those settings. Select our plots. There. All right. So, as I said, when something crosses up, right, you get a long, the default settings is you get a long output when something crosses up. And here we go. If something crosses down, so here the low price crossed our swing high, crossed down, and so we got a short like so. But remember, we need a short on this to reset our signal extender. So I'm just simply going to swap it. There we go. So now we have a short. So now let's take a look at this. All right, so we want the signal extender, we want it turned off on this bar here that broke the swing low. So let's connect this in. And there we go. And now it's turned off. Bingo. Yeah. All right. There we have it. There. So yeah, technically this actually qualified here. So yeah, this reversal or pullback bar is actually okay. Well, actually no, wait. Let's see what's happening here. Yeah, so this invalidated it, the entire setup. Um, ah, okay. Yeah. So we also, so we also need to turn off, I guess, what I would consider kind of like the master uh, um directional uh, filter, or yeah, kind of like the master directional setup identifier, right? This toggle node, is what identifies the ABC pattern. And since we had a violation here, right, we had a violation here of breaking point B. I guess we really should be turning off the toggle node if that happens. Yeah, so instead of there, let's move this up here and see what happens. So, yeah. Now, looking at the toggle node, remember we're using opposite signals to turn off the toggle node, opposite signals there. So when we get here, right, the toggle node is giving us a short, right, because we have A, B, C. So we're in a short. The toggle node is giving us a short. But this reset signal, oh, it is giving us a short too. Yeah, it is giving us a short, but we need an opposite. We're using an opposite. So I actually need to just turn off the swap. And there we go. So that long will then turn off the toggle node, right? So when the toggle node is giving us a short setup, or yeah, a short ABC pattern, we're using long signals to kill that short ABC pattern, right? So this is giving us a short, yeah, or I'm sorry, this is giving us a long here. Yeah, there we go. So we can see, right, let's mark it. So the toggle node stays on until here. And if we look at this signal, right, it's that long reset signal that turns off the toggle node when it's short. So this reset node also needs to give us a long output, right? Again, opposite, right? Opposite of what the toggle node is giving us. So, all right, so let's push both of these back and let's add an OR node. Like that in, there. So there's all the reset signals. It looks like a bowl of spaghetti right now. But if we look at the toggle node, that's what's important here. Oh, all right, hold on. We gotta make sure we get the right one connected, not that one, but there we go. All right, so yeah, there. So here's our ABC pattern, and yeah, so luckily this bar, luckily this bar right here didn't actually close below the swing low. Otherwise, that kind of would have killed everything there. And so that bar did close below, but then that bar, right, it broke point B. Well, point B is up there again. That's yeah, kind of another issue. There. All right, so let's look at the ultimate signals again here. There. There. All right, yeah, so we still have that one. And let's go back here. Yeah, we're missing this one. Well, let's see what about these others? All right, yeah, so these others show up. We are missing this one here. Oh, yeah, because we don't have an ABC. Yep. So here we go. We had a swing high, step higher. Yeah, so we took care of that earlier on. So the swing high stepped higher. Okay. Broken ABC pattern. All right. So yeah, that was good. And let's take a look at this one. We haven't looked at this one yet. So swing lows stepped higher. All right. So A, B, C. There we go. We have a bar completely crossed above point B, our pullback, and there's our signal for the stop entry order. All right, so that looks good. And again, boy, this kind of stretched out here. A, B, C, and let's see. Oh, actually, we had a failure here. Ah, that's right. Okay. Well, yeah. So let's see. This whole ABC should have been turned off because let's see. Well, actually, no. The price. Price didn't actually cross above. Oh, okay. So, yeah, this is just a simple case of needing to do a reload. No? Ah, okay. Actually, yeah, you know what? We actually got a little bit of what, a technical kind of slip through here. So while we do have a down bar, we actually didn't get the closing prices, did not reverse down. Yeah, so we had a down bar, but look, the closing prices are equal. And of course, that can happen when we're overnight, right? This is an overnight session. So we're definitely getting, some price gapping around. So, I think, I think for the most part, we'll just kind of let that one slip by since this is the overnight session there. So that's why this one here has a signal, right? Is if you look at the close here versus the close there, right? The closing price did reverse down. So, and again, I guess that kind of illustrates why sometimes you may need to use a bar direction. So instead, I used a inflection solver here, just looking at the closing price, hoping that the closing price would reverse instead of relying on a reversal bar, right? So, yeah, so if this is actually okay, that technically this is not a pullback because the closing prices are equal, whereas this is a pullback because we had a closing price higher and then a closing price lower, so that closing price pulled back. So using the closing price with an inflection solver does actually give you, a quote technical pullback, whereas a bar direction may not, right? This bar direction, this down bar didn't actually pull back towards the swing high. So again, you got to really kind of think of all of those subtle technicals differences there. And let me pull that guy out of there. There we go. There. All right, let's keep going. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, that looks good. That one as well. Yeah. And yes, that looks good. All right. Yeah, I think what we have so far is really good. So let's work on the this maximum separation. Yeah, between the pullback bar and the and point B. Yeah, so let's pull up the screenshot. What are we talking about here? So this a maximum distance, right, between the high of the bar, right, in a short signal setup, the high of the bar, let's set a maximum distance that a signal can occur, right? So it needs to be less than and no more than this maximum distance here. And of course, it'd be the opposite. Yeah. So in this case, right, setting up a maximum separation right, between the low of the setup bar and the swing high. So yeah, let's add that in here. And let's go back. There, all right. There we go. So we have three areas to work with here. And let's see, where would we put that? Yeah, we'll just put it down here. And to accomplish this, we need a comparison solver, right? So what are we doing? We're comparing the low of the bar to the swing high, or, well, and we're comparing the high of the bar to the swing low. So let's see here. And I'm not sure what distance we need. I'll just use this. I'll go with this here. Let's see what we got. All right, I'll say 8 points maximum. Okay. There. All right, so we're comparing the low price to the swing high, right? We're comparing the low price to the swing high. And the opposite, high price to the swing low. Comparing the high price to the swing low. All right, so input A, we're gonna change the input to price. And there. So for a long setup, we're comparing the low price. And for a short setup, we're comparing the high price. Input B needs to be our swing high and low. There. All right, so again, for a long signal, we're using the swing high. And if it's a short signal like here, we're using the swing low. So for a short, use the swing low. There. And all right, so now so for the comparison rules, right? The default distance here is set to points. Let's put 8 in there, 8 in there. And so let's see here. So if the low is, we want the low to be less than or equal to the swing high. So we're taking the swing high and adding 8 points, right? Plus 8 points. So here we're taking the swing low and subtracting 8 points. And let's reverse this. There, if I hit apply. Oh, and let's connect this in. There we go. And we're always getting an output. Interesting. Oh, no, there we go. Oh, okay. Actually, yeah, it is working. So let's take a look at this. Yeah, so right here, this distance is too far away from the swing low and there's no short output. Right here we can see the high is pretty close to that swing low, so that's within that 8 points. Even over here, so if we get over here, yeah, so here that high point is, let's see where. Oh, I see. Yeah, actually that high point's above the swing high. So yeah, that doesn't count. So no. But yeah, so that's an example for, right, if once price gets too far away, more than 8 points away, there's no short output down here. Right? So that would kill the signal. And let's see if we can find the opposite. Here we go. Yeah. So once the low of the bar gets too far away, more than 8 points, then there's no, right, there's no long output. So if there's no long output, then you can't get a long signal. So let's see here. So let's see if we can find an example. Well, actually, I'm just going to use this long right here as my example. So let's connect that in there. And let's open up the comparison rules. And I think let's knock this down to 6. Bingo. There we go. So the low of that bar is more than 6 points away from that swing high there. So yeah, I'll just leave it at 6. There we go. All right, so let me adjust the name here, 6 points. There we go. There. And well, let's see, yeah, during the overnight, there we go, that was within 6 points. Yeah, you know, overnight, obviously you don't get much price movement, so there's probably going to be a lot of signals overnight. And there we go. Well, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. There we go. We still have some long setups, shorts. Yeah, all right. And lastly, just to kind of put the cherry on top, you know, if you want to eliminate these overnight signals here, just remember you can always add a time session solver to this. All right, and for the time session solver, we can go into our sessions here, or as NinjaTrader calls them nowadays, trading hours. There we go. We just put in the RTH, and there we go. And so what does that do? Yep, during RTH, right, you get an output, and then when you're in the extended, there's no output. So if we look at this, and now if we connect that in, bingo, all of the extended hour signals are gone. There. So. All right, well, I think that does it. Yeah, that had a lot of detailed little conditions and components that kind of, yeah, we had to be figured out and filled in. So yeah. So kind of the key here to getting these kind of broader pattern type of signals built is being able to turn off the toggle node or a signal extender, right? So again, you have a condition. So essentially this guy is identifying point C, right? This is identifying point C, right? Let's see, scroll up, there we go, right? A, B, C, right? Point C is simply identified when the swing highs step down, right? Or if the swing lows step up, that's point C, right? And so, yeah, so you identify point C, and then you have to extend that forward in time for the rest of the trade to possibly set up, to potentially set up. Right? And so that's why you have the toggle node to take the output or the signal for point C and extend it forward in time. But then if the pattern fails, then you need to be able to turn off the toggle node, right? This ABC pattern is no longer valid, so you turn that off. So a lot of this deals with figuring out what kind of situations invalidate that pattern, your ABC pattern, right? Yeah, the same thing here. So when price crossed below, and we're almost ready to generate a signal, right? We need a pullback bar. So what can invalidate this pullback? What can invalidate looking for that pullback bar? Yeah. And so essentially the signal. Once the signal occurs, then we need to turn off the signal extender. So that way, if we get more pullback bars afterwards, we don't get secondary or tertiary type of signals there, right? All right, well, I don't see any follow-up questions on this. Yeah, so I'm just gonna assume we're done. And yeah, so let me kind of clean up the Q&A window here. And it looks like Dean has a question for me. All right, Dean. I haven't seen a question from you in a while. So yeah, give me a moment just to kind of wrap up here what we're done and clean up the Q&A window. And also take another drink and refresh my throat. All right, so Dean is having a problem with using the time session solver. Yeah, yeah. So Dean, I don't know what might have changed, but let's take a look at the time session solver here. So if we connect that in there, actually, let me. I'll rename that solver over there from the previous question. There, and this one, let's take out the one. There we go. So for the time session solver. All right, so Dean would like to identify 9:15 to a.m. to 11 a.m. All right, let's go and set this up. So let's see here. So 9:15 to 11. There. Well, actually, I'm going to change the resolution to 15 minutes. All right. So you can see, right, here's the time column, right, or the y-axis marker. So if you right click anywhere in this column here, right, that pulls up this menu here. And so you can select the resolution that you want to see there. So I'll put it on 15 minutes, and then I gotta scroll down. All right, and I'll just double click on that, click OK, and then I can drag it down. If I just want to be really lazy and not do any typing, there I can just double click, and if I wanted to, I could put 11 in there. And there we go. There. Do all that. There. Drag those down. Real easy. There you go. 9:15 to 11 a.m. And remember, you have a time zone down here. So, yeah. So, yeah, this is set to Mountain Time there. So if you want it on East Coast time, I'm going the wrong way. 5. There we go. Eastern time. There we go. So, also, yeah, remember we have in session, not in session. So maybe you adjusted those somehow. But if I look, yeah, there we go. So there is our 11:15. I'm sorry, 9:15 to 11 a.m. Eastern time, like so. There, shrink that up a little bit. There we have it. Now, if if you turn the outputs off, then there's no output, right? If I set this to 1, there, right? So this is not in session. So now we can see the opposite is marked. So now signals will occur outside of 9:15 to 11, right? So let's put this back to normal. There, like so. Maybe the solver was disabled. So, right, you can enable and disable it. There we go. You could swap it, so on and so forth. Yeah. So, yeah, Dean, just make sure that your outputs are correct. When you go to your session there, make sure the correct time zone is set, right? This is going to be set to custom there. So, yeah, make sure none of the modifiers are on. And there we go. That'll work. Let's see. Dean's It's asking, can I throw in a couple of things that will create a signal? Sure. All right, see, ton of signals. Signals every couple of minutes there. Right, signals every couple of minutes. Now let's shrink it way up there. There we go. Let's go. Yeah, that should be good. Right, as soon as we connect in the time session solver, bingo, everything's isolated. So that's all you got to do. So essentially, the time session solver is typically, I'd say 99.99% of the time, it always goes into the very last AND node. So let's see here. This is a bad example. This only has one AND node. What do we got here? Here we go. All right, so here's the first question of today. We have two AND nodes, and so the time session solver would go, if I wanted to add this RTH, it would go into the last AND node there. All right. Here. So make sure this is an AND, not an OR, right? So if you have two or more systems connected together with an OR node, right? Yeah, so maybe you have another system down here and you're tying them all together with an OR node, right? Obviously you can't connect that into an OR node, or this is what happens, right? This is what happens, yeah. You see that. So it has to be an AND node. Yeah. So if you have two more systems, right, you're going to have an AND node down here, right? This is system one. This would be your system number two, and that would have to go into both AND nodes. So you could just put it right in the middle there, connect it to both AND nodes, and you're good to go. So, or if you wanted to, you could put an AND node at the very end as well. Right, and then there you go, and then put that. So there you go. Once again, your time session solver is connected to your very last AND node if you just add an extra one. Of course, that's, because you have an OR node connecting two systems together. 6 or a half dozen the same, as they, as they say. So, yeah. All right, Dean. So yeah, that should get you squared away there. Yeah. So all right. So Dean is saying that there are no signals. Yeah, when it connects in a time solver. Yeah, well, so definitely the first thing you have to do is make sure that your time solver actually has an output, from 9:15 to 11. So make sure that there's an output here, and that way you know it's working correctly. So. Or the and so if your time solver is working correctly, then the other choice is that you just don't have any signals during that time period. Yeah. So you can always, grab a inflection solver, right? This is an inflection solver, right? You can always build this quick little test here just to prove to yourself that everything's working. Yeah. But yeah, if you're not seeing any signals, I think it's just because you just aren't having any signals during that time period there. But anyways, yeah, quick little test, easy to do. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that got Dean squared away. So, all right. Wow, we almost made it to the 3 hour mark. Man, kind of like the old days. So not too bad for today's workshop. All right, so gentlemen, let's see. We are losing people in the room here, so not surprising. It's kind of hard to keep people through 3 hours. It is a bit extensive. So I'm gonna set the timer here for about another 5 or 6 more minutes, basically until like 55 minutes after the hour, or 5 till. And if I don't see any more questions by the time we reach 5 till the top of the hour, then I'll assume we're done for the day. All right. But yeah, so if you guys have any more questions for me, get it into the Q&A window, and I'll get it answered. And so while I'm hanging out for the next 6 minutes, right, I'm just going to mute my microphone here. Hey, no problem, Dean. Yep, you know the drill. You just email support there, and Mike can get you a copy of, yeah, today's Bloodhound file there. Yep, no problem. All right, looks like Dean's got another question for me. All right, so Dean has a question about the signal blocker. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, Dean, I'd say that's correct. Um, yeah, so let's pull a Bloodhound here so we can see what Dean is talking about. All right, so the question about the signal blocker. Let's add one to the board here. All right. And let's see, let's put the time sessions solver. Well, there. All right. All right, Dean. So if I understand Dean's question correctly here, he's using a signal blocker and he's using opposite signal and no signal. All right. There we go. All right. So yeah, let's see, what do we get here? Yeah, let me mark I'm using the time session solver here. There. And let's see. All right, so if we look at the signal blocker, again, on the signal blocker, when you're trying to debug, setting up the signal blocker correctly, right, you should use this actively blocking here while you're debugging it. So, right, I usually use about 0.2, 0.3, whatever. And so what that allows me to do is, right, I can see that, again, this time session solver, it's only giving me a long output, right, a long output only. So the signal blocker, right, the time session solver signal comes in, the first one gets through, and now it's actively blocking, right? And it's blocking for 50 bars, right? And then the next signal gets through. So I think part of your question is, do you still need to use signal blocking for? And yes, because the signal blockers, it's not designed to block indefinitely. Most people just don't need that. At some point, your blocking, isn't needed anymore. So for as far as this, time session solver here, let's see how many, we have 105 bars. Yeah, 105 bars. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, 60 plus 45. So we get 50 bars, and then on the 51st bar, another signal gets through, blocks for another 50 bars, and then another signal gets through, right? And then we get a few more, and then the blocking comes to an end. Oops. Right, the blocking comes to an end because my time session solver, right, it stops producing an output. Yeah, so we can see that the active blocking turns off, right? That 0.2 value goes away because there is no signal at the input, right? The input has no signal, right? Our time session solver turns off right there. So let's see here. I could also let's see, let's switch this to an OR node. All right, so we're going to get a long run of a long output, of a green output, and then we're going to get short outputs every once in a while as well. So if we connect that into the signal blocker, well, it effectively doesn't really do anything. I should say the shorts don't really do anything because let's look at this, right? What's going into the signal blocker? Well, it's a continuous run of long outputs. So while the short signals do reset the signal blocker, but you have a signal to be blocked again, at least on the long side. On the long side, you have a signal to be blocked again. So you kind of get this, right? Yeah, so you get a long signal and a short signal comes through, but then the longs are being actively blocked, right? The longs are being actively blocked because no signal has not occurred yet. There's always a signal. There's always a long signal. However, the shorts, there is no signal anymore. So that's why a short gets through, but there's no blocking of the shorts because the shorts are turned off. There is no short signal. Yeah. So, let's see. I think maybe, Dean, my guess is instead of input, let's see here, input opposite signal. Well, yeah, input opposite signal, it is turning off the blocking. Well, actually, no. So if this short signal came in, no, it just doesn't apply. Yeah, sorry. Because we have this continuous run of long signals, you know, the shorts can't turn off the blocking, because on the same bar you had a long signal there. Yeah. So again, but I don't know exactly what you're trying to do there. So I don't know if that helps or not. You know, that may just be confusing you if that's not what your actual problem is. So, yeah. So, yeah, this is really kind of difficult to get squared away in your head there, you know, but if we turn off the input no signal, then it's going to make sense. Oops, there we go. Yeah, so now a long signal gets through every single time there's a short signal, because the short signal turns off the signal blocker, and then the signal blocker allows a long signal to get through. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So, really, let's go to the end here. Well, yeah, so this short signal occurs right when the long outputs come to an end. So the blocking of the long signals is going to end here anyways, but we also had a short signal coming in. But now we have a short signal being blocked, but then a long signal comes in. So the short signals are no longer being blocked, right? But the long signals are being blocked, but then a short signal comes in. Let's take a look at this, right? Long signal, short, so short signal is being blocked for 2, but then a long signal comes in, right, which is opposite of the shorts. So, yeah, so input opposite signal. Yeah, so the signal blocker is blocking for 50 bars or until an opposite signal comes in. Yeah. So, yeah, so, you know, the more of these reset conditions that you have enabled, obviously, you know, you're adding more and more conditions that you have to evaluate there. So it is going to get more and more confusing. So, yeah. But so they all work together. So whichever one of these reset conditions occurs. So they're ORed. All of these conditions are ORed together. So whichever one occurs first is the one that will reset the signal blocker. But if there is also a signal on that bar, well, then that starts the signal blocker up again. So that restarts the blocking again. There. Yeah, so the key thing is to, while you're trying to figure out which reset conditions you need, you know, to use, make sure you're using the active blocking there. Set it to 0.2 or 0.3, so that way you can see, oh, all right, the signal blocker actually is not blocking short signals. It's blocking long signals, but it's not blocking short signals on these bars, right? Yeah. So that will help you out a lot. And then once you have it all figured out, you can just set it back to 0 and everything looks normal again. So, but as always, I would suggest, let's see here. Yeah, I don't think there's actually a, does that? Oh, yeah, excellent. Okay, right, there we go. So there is a link that'll open up a browser, and there you go. Just watch the tutorial. So really, you know, 95% of the tutorial is really about the resets. Uh, oh wait, that's comparison solver. Hold on, I got the wrong, there we go. Let's click the signal blocker. There we go. No wonder I was being so confused. Here we go. Yeah, so what I was trying to say here is 90% of the video is on the reset functions here. You know, yeah. So there we go. Yeah, I see here Dean's comment. He didn't know about the 50 bar limit. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the first setting there to figure out is, you know, what is the maximum number of bars you need to be blocking for? You know, put some number in there, you know, I guess kind of round it up a little bit, probably, you know, whatever you think it is, you could just round it up maybe to the next 10, increment of next 10 or increment of next 20, you know, whatever you think you should round it up to there. Yeah, round that up. So, and that's what we're actually. I'm going to turn off all the resets here. There we go. Oh, there we go. Let's turn the actively blocking back on. So, oh, and there. I'm just going to connect in our time session solver there. Yeah. All right. So, we're blocking for 50 bars, and there's no resets. The resets are all set to none, turned off. Yeah, so we get a signal, right? It blocks for 50 bars, and since there's still, right, there's still an output from this, then another signal gets through, blocks for 50 bars. Another signal gets through, and it blocks for 50 bars. Yeah. So there you go. So that's what the block signals for does. And let's see, let's move on to the next comment here. All right. That's why we have these workshops here, guys, so that way you don't have to buy me drinks. So, but yeah, definitely watch the video there. Let's see, click on this, click on that, click on help, and then we can just click on the icon there, and Voila. Yeah. And also, let's see where, there we go, resets. So a reset, yeah, so again, right, there's an explanation there for each type of reset condition. So no signal or input, no signal. Yeah, so a bar without a long signal to the input connector, right? What's the input connector? Zoom in there. There you go. That's your input connector, right? That's your reset connector, and that's your output. So, yeah. So if there's a bar without a long signal, right, at the input connector, right, or I should say, yeah, the input connector, will that will reset the long calculations. Long calculations. Yeah, I disagree with that. That'll reset the long blocking. Yeah. So, yeah. So anyways, there you go. Explanation everywhere. And the video. And let's see. All right, looks like we got Dean squared away here. Okie doke. Good, 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 good. Let's see. All right, we are past the 3-hour mark now, as expected. All right, so I'm going to set the timer again for another 5 minutes or so. All right, so yeah, if there's any more questions I can answer, let me know. And if I don't see any more questions within the next 5 minutes or so, then I'll just assume we're done for the day. Yeah. There. Dean says everybody's probably asleep. Maybe. Depends on your time zone. Yeah, it depends on the time zone. But yeah, that's why you should always bring a boiling hot cup of coffee to these workshops. So, yeah. All right, yeah, so I'm just going to mute my microphone here while I'm waiting for the next question to come in or waiting for the timer to run out. And yeah. All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna call it. So it's been about 5 minutes or so. And yeah, since we're well past the 3 hour mark, I think we're done for the day, all out of questions. So, yeah. All right. Well, I think you guys all know the drill. If you want a copy of today's Bloodhound file, just email support there, and Mike will get you a copy of that once it gets uploaded to the site. Or, of course, you can always look. You can always look on the site. Afterwards, and download these workshop files here from the template files here, right? So remember, this is for the installer. These are for the template files. So if I open that up on another page, right? So there's the Bloodhound files there. So you can just go in there. And remember, sort by date, right? We can see here the oldest ones from Bloodhound version 1 are first. So, this little plug-in here, sorts them by oldest first. So sort by date, and there you go. So there's last week's workshop file right there. So that was the last one. The workshop on the 28th, we didn't have one. So, so again, you can always go here to get your files, or just email support there, and Mike will get back to you. So, right. All right. Well, gentlemen, until next time, if I don't see you in tomorrow's Blackbird workshop, then have a good weekend, and see you next time. Bye-bye, guys.